The Ultimate Dream Saga of the Ultimate Man Part 1. I am the Ultimate Man, Alpha and Omega to all men, the foundation and the completion, the darkness and the light of Zion. I have always been and always will be. The ultimate goal is my destiny, to serve the Creator of eternity. Ultimate Man, the Savior of women and men. Present is the Serpent who never repents. Ultimate Man will defeat the Serpent of men. Desperate, the Serpent twists the world to end. As his time is coming to an end, Ultimate Man breaks the teeth of the Serpent, decimates the chains of bondage, destroys the temple of the devil age, roots all evil out of the ground. Of all the devils that he found, judge and punish them all. As Ultimate Man speaks to all, they will mourn for forgiveness to all. As they were deceived to believe they rule all, their deeds unforgivable judgment is done. Defeated, the Serpent struggles in vain. All evil power is gone and screams in pain. Only the good and righteous remain. Ultimate Man throws them all into the abyss. As they fall, they are destroyed to bliss. All rejoice but also cry for the lost. But Ultimate Man will wipe their tears, as they are in heaven as hosts, in glory, victorious forever and ever. Prologue, Ultimate Man Origins. Ultimate is Alpha to rule life and be the example to all the creation, and is Omega, the protector, the advisor, the teacher, the helper, the merciful one. The foundation, as he holds all creation and the completion of all the good of all creation and the Creator's glory. The light to all who seek the Creator and the darkness to all who seek the devil. My name is Tom Abdullah Bijal, the Ultimate Man, and this is my story. Born in 1980 in Mogadishu, I have lived in various countries due to my father's work. He was a high-grade consultant for governments. My father is Dutch and my mother is Senegalese. I have one brother and one sister. When I was 1 year old, my father went to the Netherlands. We bought a house in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, when I was 4 years old. My father had various jobs as a consultant in different countries across the globe. For a long period of time my father had a mission in Yemen and we went there with him. There in Yemen, one day when I was 5 years old, my father and mother left me there alone in St. Louis with my grandmother, and they went to Sri Lanka with my older brother and sister who were 10 and 11 years old. At that time a war broke between Senegal and Mauritania. One day my aunt asks me to go to the shop. I was unaware of the danger. Some Senegalese vigilantes were after Moors to kill them out of revenge for all the murder Moors were doing to Senegalese people in their country. That day I was walking around in the area where I lived, and a group of Senegalese with machetes and bats with spikes stopped and looked at me. They were heading for me, but somebody stopped them and said, "I recognize that boy, he is no Moor, he lives around here," and they let me go. Many Moors and Senegalese people died in that war. When I experienced the war and saw so much anger, violence, and death, people that lived peacefully suddenly turned blaming and killing each other. It confused me a lot that people could turn so easily on each other. At 6 years old my mother and father came back, and after traveling to many places, my mother decided to settle in Senegal, so my father bought her a villa on the island in St. Louis. From that age I made a vow to myself to undo evil and to always be good and fight for good. Chapter I. Then we went to Yemen. There one day I woke up one time in the middle of the night and I looked at the window, and there in the sky I saw a boat carrying 8 strange beings. When they landed, they surrounded me, and there I was in the middle of them. They were so giant that their toe would not fit in my room, but somehow, they were there surrounding me in my room. Then they were discussing in a language I could not understand. After a deep argument they suddenly looked all at me seriously, nodded, then they all went back on their boat and departed. Like they came, they went away. I never saw them again, but after learning about the Egyptian gods and saw their pictures, I thought to myself, the beings I saw looked precisely like them. Their body was human and their heads were hidden under a gold-like helmet, each representing a different animal. The most impressive one was the one that had an eagle's head as it was shining bright light, and the most fearsome one had a head like a hound. Those two made the most impression to me. They were wearing impressive clothes sparkling light. Another night I had a dream being in an intergalactic war. It was like fighting in the darkness, and we were the light fighting dark beings, and I was fighting them with 3 other super incredible warriors. They knew me well as we were working well as a team and giving quickly commands to each other, defeating the enemy easily. We were wearing incredible armors and were gliding into the deep with ships. They seemed to look at me all the time with fear. I was wondering why, and I looked at my hand and feet and I was emanating pure light. I looked and saw a horde of dark beings attacking us, so as I started to blast these dark beings, as I was blasting my way through, suddenly a loud humming sound made the dark beings flee. As they fled, one of my teammate told me, "Now is the time, the monster is coming." And as I stood on the gliding ship, I grabbed my weapon, which was first a blaster, and it transformed into a huge spear with an extremely long blade like a double-handed sword, and it was shining so bright. As I thrust the spear toward that terrifying dark monster that seemed to have no end in size, I threw it with extreme strength and the spear flew like lightning, and then as it plunged the dark monster, the blade started folding out like an endless scissor and cuts down the monster in half, and it perished. All dark beings also perished by the huge explosion, and light was everywhere. We rejoiced of our victory. The dark beings were defeated once and for all. It seemed we were fighting them for an eternity, and now finally we succeeded. All beings who stood by us all declared me ruler of all by right. The throne was given to me and I ruled supreme. All respected me, were happy and rejoiced. As I looked at the remains of the dark beings and the huge monster, I decided to use the huge monsters to make one half the foundation and the other half the sky. From it I make a beautiful garden. And I say, let the dark beings be created again with my light and prosper on the garden to fill it and give it life. Also, I made men and women, I give them my light, so that the dark beings from chaos were reborn to repent and become light. One of my teammates who fought with me was not really happy about that and feared the worst, as if they had my light that would mean they could become stronger than they are. But I said then to them, everybody deserves a second chance and then can only be like me if they live my way. They looked at me and then they said, only the worthy, righteous, and good that loves creation will be allowed to live among us. And I said, I have created them to my image and have my light in them, they will find the way. But then said the wisest among us, we must set a timer, and within that time frame we'll pick those who are worthy and cast down into the abyss those who failed. So, I replied that we must give them time to accept and understand. We all agreed. And as we look upon the garden, we saw all kinds of creatures flourish, and men and women among them populated the garden in numbers. The garden was very bright with shining light and beautiful. They were happy, and some of them they recognized me and were worshipping me in many ways, and I would somehow come to them and guide them. As I was looking at my creation, I was happy and saw it was good. I woke up still remembering and marveling at my dream and the meaning of it. After Yemen we went back to St. Louis to Senegal, and we find out that the villa in St. Louis needed to be rebuilded. So when I was 9 years old, my father bought a villa in Burkina Faso. He was working there as the president of the SNV, a Dutch association to help Africa to develop, so we moved to Burkina Faso. Chapter 2. When we settled in Burkina Faso, one day my mother brought me, my brother and sister to a place where there was a pit filled with crocodiles. I don't know what happened, but I jumped right into the pit. I can't remember if I was pushed inside or jumped in myself, but I don't think anybody would jump into a crocodile den. Somehow it is still mind-boggling to me how did I ended up into the pit filled with like 4 dozen of crocodiles, as my mother stood by and did nothing to stop it. It was like she wanted to see me eaten by those crocodiles. I remember then patting the crocodiles, and caressing them, even touching their huge jaws. They did not do anything to me, luckily. When my sister saw me, she also ran down into the pit. My mother freaked out and screamed. What I found odd is that my mother did not have that reaction with me. My older brother did not dare to jump in. Then a boy carrying a bunch of chickens started throwing them around into the pit, and the crocodiles, as still as they were, started moving very fast and catching the chickens in one powerful bite and swallowed them alike. These crocodiles were huge. Never understood why my mother brought us there and let me get into the pit first while watching. I quickly just went on with my daily chores. Now in Burkina I had a series of dreams for 1 week, 7 consecutive dreams. They were extremely vivid dreams, as if I was living it. The first one started with me, I was the light within the darkness, and then I was in a beautiful place, complete and heavenly. I was there walking with beautiful creatures. It was like a big mysterious jungle full with beauty, beautiful beings, and tasty colorful fruits, but then it seems I sat down thinking deeply. Naked I was the light in the darkness, but it started to surround me. The darkness seems to have changed the world with dark spikes all around me. They grew and grew bigger until the world around me seemed unlivable. I could not move, and so I started struggling and breaking down the spikes to find a way out. By tearing an opening, I found my way out of it. I saw the light and I screamed loudly and saw all these odd faces looking down at me. Then I saw myself walking in a beautiful world, different from the first, as it was full of men and women with odd clothes, colorful with lots of gadgets. They had built houses and a well-working society. I was walking around proud and people loved and respected me. But then quickly it all turned into a hazardous land, with dead trees, the food was rotten, water turned into acid, people fighting and cursing, and houses destroyed everywhere. The world seemed to have fallen, but despite all of that I kept on walking proud and talked to the people, and slowly but surely the world became beautiful again, and I was there teaching, guiding, and leading all. All became well and beautiful again, everyone was happy and loved each other. As I sat down enjoying my success, I noticed a little red lizard with horns that was hiding under the ground. It was plotting and started to scare the women who were running around when they saw it. One of my wives came to me and pointed to me where the red lizard with horns was, so I rooted it out as it seemed glued to the ground, and then I cast it down into a nearby pit. After that the light shined even brighter upon us all, and all who were following me cheered and praised me. I was happy and proud, but I found the lizard pretty much harmless. I could not understand the fuss about it. This part of the dream was cartoonish and cute, and, in the dream, I was wondering who was that little weird creature I saw and cast down the pit. Suddenly I was warped into my real body, and there I was between endless people in a dark huge cave covered in blood, some with demon horns, all dancing around like happy monkeys, doing all kinds of weird stuff, sacrificing creatures of all sorts, themselves, and eating each other. And there in the midst of them was one very big man, completely red with huge horns, ugly and filthy, with a big fork, screaming horrible words of death, chaos, and misery while he was forking the people and eating them. Rather than running away, the people were rejoicing and worshipping this horrible monster, holding, and even worse, some woman would give birth and directly hold their newborn before the beast, as if begging the beast to eat their newborn children. I was terrified and tried to run away, but the people were dragging me toward the monster. And then I screamed loudly for help as the fork of that demon was closing in on me. Suddenly I found myself in a big factory working like a robot, and I saw all people in this endless factory do the same, but they seem headless, as if they had lost their minds or their face and could not think for themselves. I could not reason with them, speaking about logic and sense was useless, and I could not break their routine to take their attention about the mindless work ethic and the sadness they live in. So, I took off the working clothes, threw them away, and ran out of the factory, and while I tried to get out of the factory, I found myself surrounded with soldiers that looked like cockroaches. They were very fierce and tried to subdue me with intimidating treats that they would kill me or take away my freedom and put me in a box if I do not comply. I was quite confused, as I thought that working was a choice, but it was obvious that I was abducted since birth and I didn't know so. So back at the factory I understood that seeking help from others is useless, so my only way out is to understand how the factory works. It seemed that my home was in the factory, and wherever I went I could see those cockroaches walking around, subduing, taking people away, and even beating and killing them on the streets. The factory life was poisonous, food was plastic, water was acid, and houses were like prison cells. They could track us anywhere, listen and watch us anytime they wanted. The cockroaches seemed ruthless and well organized. Nobody knew for who they were working for. So, I started to study the cockroaches, and I quickly catch the drift, understood that their minds were limited, so I was able to trick them, and I managed to escape the factory again, but this time I found the door out and it was very narrow and treacherous. While I was running out of the factory, I directly fall off a giant cliff to my surprise, and as I fall, I see the cockroaches look down at me and laugh, as if saying, "This one is done." The fall would be a long one, and many bones were also falling as people were being dumped out of the factory as used batteries. Looking at how fast the ground was closing in, I thought to myself I was going to splatter on the ground like a bug, but I fell directly on a swing where two girls were playing. One was a blonde girl and the other one was a brunette. They were charming, with long hairs, young, energetic and very beautiful. We were in a very beautiful jungle and the sun was shining on us. There was a beautiful house. They offer me to settle with them in that house. I most definitely accepted, so I was very happy, and we were living together happily free in a place full of plants, animals, and insects. We played together a lot, we were laughing, we had fun running around the woods and in abandoned houses. This world was totally different. It seemed we lived there for a while together and we were very close. But life did not seem easy as we lacked good food and luxury. Then one day we decided to visit the city. This city seemed mixed with the jungle and was full of trees. As we went together into the city, there I lost track of them as I was in a toy shop where I was mesmerized by all the toys, and I was taking one of my favorite toys, so happy to finally get it. I suddenly wake up. Waking up, I thought to myself, who were those two beautiful girls? Chapter 3. Then night after hoping to meet the girls again, I had a second dream. I saw the world and people were fighting and screaming at each other. This phenomenon seems to happen worldwide. Looking at it, I could not understand why. It went so far that they started killing each other with all sorts of pretexts to justify their crimes. I thought to myself, is there a way to find a better place with better people? I was looking, trying to find a way, asking around, listening carefully, learn as much as can, and trying to understand a way to live better or find better people. The task seemed impossible and the information was overwhelming and all seemed to be false and or twisted. After that I stopped listening to people, started to walk my own path of knowledge, and then suddenly as I was walking, I tripped on something invisible. As I was tapping with my foot to find it back, I found it again and I could step on an invisible stair. I try a few steps and could go quite high, but then got scared as I was seeing the ground and I was like floating on the air, so I suddenly fell on the ground and it hurt. I thought to myself, this is dangerous, there is absolutely no guarantees. I tried to find the invisible stairs again but could not find it. So, I lay down and rest. I was then with one of my best friends running away from cockroach patrolling and persecuting anybody they would encounter in the city. We were able to elude them all time. The city was filthy and there were rivers of acid pouring through the city and bones of people roaming inside. The sea was like a huge acid pool and everybody was doing their best to avoid it, but from times to time some huge waves would claim many lives and swept them away. The cockroaches seemed immune to the acid rivers. One day the cockroaches were targeting my friend, so I was doing everything to help him. But then the cockroaches found us. To save my friend I told him to run with me, and as we were running away, we had to pass some of boiling acid river. The passage was so narrow. So carefully we tried to pass through, but that when my best friend saw the soldiers he panicked and tripped and fell into the boiling acid river, and he was instantly consumed by it and I saw his bones came out. The cockroaches started to shoot at me, so I ran away. I was able to escape after fighting many of them throughout my run. Luckily, I found a beetle car, so I took it and started to drive fast. I saw other people were fleeing too, so I told them to get into the car. Like in the movies, it was a car chase and the cockroaches had all the weapons and arsenal of oppression at their disposal, so as they were shooting at me, mortars and rocket launchers. I managed to drive on a huge ramp that made the beetle do an impossible jump that seemed to take days as we were flying to the other side, as the earth seemed cracked in the middle. The cockroaches were unable to go on the other side. The crack was far too deep, it seems to have no bottom. When the beetle crash landed on the other side, we were saved. And I looked back and I saw a big huge rift so deep, long, and the part I was full of nature and life like a jungle, and the other part was like a big factory city spilling poisonous gases, with acid boiling rivers, and filled with all kinds of terrifying insects that were subjugating the people, intimidating, murdering them. Some even ate the people who were like slaves perpetually working. They were like a swarm of terrifying insects, and bones of people were lying everywhere. It was a desolate place. I was happy I found a way to get out of it. I was happy I succeeded to find that jungle world again. With the people I saved, we wandered around until we found another group. As the others settled, they had a base full of warriors. The people here were all wearing Star Trooper-like armors and had some of them high-tech weapons. They were all armed and it seemed like a band of warrior rebels. I joined them and fought many battles at the front line. We were fighting insect-like soldiers. But as we were just but a few and outmatched, we quickly had to disperse and hide. I saw myself on the road using various transport mediums. Met people along the way who were also fighting, but each their own way. So, after hiding for a while and living in the underground, I decided to go back and save my family, my mother, father, sister, and brother. As they were still in the devastated city swarmed with death insects. A wise-looking woman came and gave me her blessing to go back and save the people. So, I said goodbye to the people, took some rations and a glider and flew back to Hellish City. I woke up. Chapter 4. The third dream, I saw again the world torn apart, but now people were killing each other and war was everywhere. All kinds of killing machines, bombs, and chemical weapons deployed, people suffering terribly. So I was like, what the hell is going on? And then suddenly there was a tank heading at me. I thought first he must targeting somebody, as I am not in this wars, but then the tank targeted me. So I freaked out and started running, and then I thought to myself, the invisible stair. So after hoping a few times, suddenly I find it again, and just as I start to run up the stairs, many killing machines and soldiers were trying to get me, but it was too late. I was too far up the stairs. So, I continue running the stairs until the earth seemed so small. So, I felt guilty and felt like a coward, so I thought to myself, I must try to save the people and stand up to these bullies, and then walking back down the invisible stairs. As I was making my way back, I saw the world in a lot of pain, people suffering everywhere, and dying for unknown reasons. War was everywhere, the darkness was everywhere. Masses of people fleeing from their homes and their cities turned into rubble. I felt completely helpless. And even thought so much evil was already done to them. Cockroaches that looked like humans started to exploit the misery, and soldiers came around killing some for fun. I tried to defend as many as I can, but I could only help a few. As I was trying to tell people to stand up and fight, none would do so. As if they needed the suffering to exist. Some would eat poison and say it is a cure, others would put all kinds of stuff into their body and looked like half cyborgs. People would not listen and were addicted to the fruits of the evil cockroaches. From times to times I would get attacked by cockroach secret agents, but that would always trick them, as I knew how limited their minds were. Along the way I met a bunch of warriors who wanted to go fight the cockroaches, as they were aware of their existence. So, we banded together and went out to take down their system first and awaken the people. As we sat down a nice plain, We were 5, 2 girls and 3 guys, Aja a strong Senegalese woman, Sylvana a Scandinavian woman, Jukpa Dutch commando, Kwan a Korean martial arts specialist and Rasputin a Russian engineer master. Together we build the ultimate suit, Galman the Transformer Man, and we remade Sylvana into a fearsome cyborg that warps her hands in blasters. We had a nice place and lived well together. As Aja came and sat down next to me in our house, I caressed her head and kissed her. We seemed close to each other. We had 2 sons together, one was a genius Marinus and the other one hyper-strong Jan. One day as we were preparing to leave, we saw in the horizon legions of hellish beings coming towards us. So, I stood up there and said the end times has started, and I woke up. Chapter V. The 4th dream. I am again in the middle of the war zone fighting and dismantling all kinds of killing machines and soldiers. They shoot at me, I dodge all bullets and I succeed on capturing their most valuable technology and I destroy it, but as soon as I do so I remark that all my efforts are for nothing, as the people around me kept on fighting, and this time it was getting even worse. I decided that if they don't want to listen and change their ways, I will not help them. I wondered about the invisible stair and I decided that wanted to know what was at the end of the invisible stair. I started looking for the stair again and I found it easily and I started to run up the stairs. Soon the earth became so small I could not see anymore and it was very dark, but I was the light that emanate through the darkness. Suddenly I see a woman in black robes, very old and weary, and she is shocked and screams at me, "How is it possible that you are running the stairs?" I just said, "I just run it." She then responded, "I have never seen in my whole life somebody who can run stairs like you do. Do you know how much effort it took me to come this far? Almost 1,000 lifetimes." I asked, "Can somebody live that long and so many times?" She laughed and answered, "So you do not know your own past? You must be of the generation that is the most deceived. Know this, that these stairs you are not many men has ever been able to walk far on the rainbow stair, they all fall. You must be special to run the stairs like this and very strong, never seen anybody stronger than you in all my lifetimes." Hearing that, I thought to myself, if I am that strong I must be able to save my people and restore the peace on earth, so I walked down immediately the stairs again. The old woman smiled at me. Now I find myself on a bike fighting a swarm of cockroach soldiers and tanks and another bug-like war machines. I was dodging a swarm of bullets and destroying waves of hellish insect-like soldiers that looked like robots or cyborgs, together with my friends and family. As I was driving the bike, I jumped down a ravine and shoot down some super elite soldiers, and there was this huge impressive tower in the horizon that was touching the sky. And I was heading for it to slay a specific android that was named Andromedium, they said was the reincarnation of the fallen angel Beelzebub. As I enter a building at full speed, I dodged all kinds of attacks, destroy and eliminate many hellish soldiers and war machines. The building collapses from all the attacks. I get out of it just in time. Suddenly a barrage of rockets is thrown at the army of cockroaches chasing us, which wipe them out instantly, stopping their pursuit for a little while. I see this Galman as a tank. I jump inside and there was my friends and family. As we moved forward, we blasted our way through. The tank could transform into this giant robot to fight more effectively with a huge sword that could slice anything and transform into many weapons. As we destroyed all of the legions before us, we decided to retreat as the swarm of hellish soldiers was only increasing. We managed to escape and infiltrated one of their cities where the tower was nearby to lay low and think of another strategy. Looking at the window of our room we rented, I saw a huge beautiful city with lots of technology, but then when you look further you see the oppression, as police and soldiers are everywhere, sirens all the time. As I looked and gazed, I woke up. Chapter 6. The 5th dream. I am again between all the fights and wars and I am screaming everywhere to people to wake up and that we can make peace and explaining how, but nobody would listen. They would get angry at me and turn their backs and soon engage in the war, and many also went to devour each other as if they were food to each other. I was disgusted, so I thought myself, now this is the time I walk this invisible stair until the end. I started running again the stairs, sometimes stopping to take a peek at the earth. As I was running the stairs far further than before, I did not meet the old lady again, so I started running even faster. Then suddenly somebody screamed at me in confusion, saying, "This is impossible. When can a man run the divine stairs like this?" I said, "Divine stairs?" I saw an old man wearing white robes and emanating light, and he said, "You must be the chosen one." And he bowed down before me. I said, "Why do you bow down before you don't even know me? What have I done for you to receive such great honors?" He then said, "Even though your knowledge is limited to your father's teaching, I know myself to whom I am speaking. That is why I bow down before you." I did not understand. I tried to ask something else to better understand, but then suddenly I sensed great trouble on earth, and everything was on fire and being destroyed. I felt it was my duty to go back and fight, so either than walking the stairs down, I just jumped into the deep black and flew down to the earth to save my brothers and sisters. In the city we find a way to pass through the guards and reach the tower. When we reached the tower, it was humongous and seemed to have no top, as if it was touching the sky and further until you could not see its end. It was very clean and beautiful, a flawless design from the outside, but as soon as we were inside it was a chaos. The people living there were either like human hybrids, robots, and cyborgs, or insect-like and serpent-like people. Our goal was to blend in and infiltrate the tower, and as soon as we have enough access, we fight our way through the top. The higher we went, the cleaner and more secure it was, and we would see less and less hybrids and more robots. Every level was a city, that is how big the tower was. Before we could get to the next level, it always took some time to find a way. After reaching the middle of the tower by applying for jobs, as that was the only way, and getting as much information we can, we were able to reach the midsection. That was the limit that a hybrid could get. If you wanted to go higher, you needed to be either a full cockroach or insect or robot and android. From there we gave up our cover and started to fight our way up. We were not prepared for the threat we were to face. Extremely violent super elite cockroach soldiers with hyper-technological weapons attacked us, and Aja was badly injured, so we needed to retreat. As we retreated, a huge army of super mech warriors attacked us. We retaliated with Gallman, the transforming tank, that would come to our aid if the plan fails. We managed to escape. Gallman fought fiercely, but it was badly hit and unrepairable. We had to leave it. As we wandered a very aggressive desert that even the cockroach would not dare to go in. We all stumbled and fell out of drought. I was the only one left standing, so I carried my friends all until I found an oasis where we rested. As I lay down taking my rest, I woke up. Chapter 7. The sixth dream. I saw myself in a desolate world torn apart, and even thought so many had died and suffer. People did not stop devouring and fighting with each other, and even warring here and there for the scraps left. The air and water were poisoned, the earth was here and there on fire, many great cities turned into rubble. I was like, this is the last time I try to help these people change their ways. This time I am going to the end of the stairs. So as a thunderbolt I ran up the stairs, and even thought I was running at lightning speed. I could not see the end of the stairs, but I put more effort and kept on running faster into a deep blackness, until suddenly I saw a light in the middle of all the blackness, so I kept on running even faster. Then I saw a door enlightened by an amazing light, and I opened the door. And there I stood before many people on the oasis. They told me that they had decided to follow me in my fight, that this nemesis needs to be rooted out and removed. We then organized a great fighting force with the tools and materials we had, ready to fight the swarm that comes from the tower. As from the tower they all came to be, if we want to defeat them then we need to destroy the tower. So, we headed to the humongous tower that seemed to have no top as it reached the heavens. And in an apocalyptic war like Armageddon, the two forces clashed. The swarm army was so immense it seemed to engulf our army. Our army looked like a joke, but we fought fearsomely. The plan was to get me close enough to fly up to the top of the tower and confront their newly incarnated super android that was the devil incarnate Beelzebub. As we blasted our way through, many perished. It seemed impossible. But with uncanny intelligence and strategy we were able to push the swarm back. I then unleashed myself into the swarm to try to reach the tower, as we could not go any further as we were cornered by heavy artillery. With incredible speed and agility, I ravaged my way through, destroying all kinds of war machines and super elite soldiers. It seemed an impossible task. But as soon as I was close enough, I jumped and flew up. The tower defense system initiated and all kinds of weapons were being fired at me. As I was almost being hit, a huge blast hits the tower, destroying half of its foundations and energy grid. People around the world gathered and started fighting back. The tower started shooting everywhere and could not focus his firepower on me. I took the opportunity, flew as fast I could. The tower seemed endless. But finally, I reached the top. I see that the top is still being built, and there was a round table of all kinds of people sitting around it like taking decisions, and they were scared and were desperately trying to initiate Beelzebub. I break into one of the windows and destroy the table while I am landing. These people in suits trying to run away. One of them ran to the people trying to activate the android and said, "It is now or never, we cannot wait any longer." They responded that if they activate forcefully it might not be controllable, we need to diminish its power. The fat man in a suit screamed, "No, release the devil now." As they activate this huge android, his red eyes lighten up and the first thing it does is rip them apart as they scream in agony. All the people in the room panic and try to run away, but they are helplessly devoured by the android monster. And he laughs and says, "Fools, you thought you could control me." I stood there looking at him horribly killing these criminals who were the ones behind all the crimes, nemesis, and wars around the world. After killing them all, he turns to me and he says to me, "Ho, son of man, does you think a body of flesh can defeat a body made of iron?" And then jumps at me. In a furious battle I was dodging desperately his attacks as it trashed everything it hit. His strength and power were beyond anything imaginable and his speed was outstanding. In all the monsters I fought, this was far beyond any expectations. As I tried to hit him, he then grabs me and tosses me and then tries to smash me on the ground. I dodge it on time. I thought to myself, there is no way I can defeat him with my knuckles. Suddenly I realized that the fighting had stopped outside and the swarm of hellish cockroach soldiers were heading toward me. I stood alone versus a horde. All seemed lost, and then suddenly as I saw the whole swarm and Beelzebub trying to hit me, I came to understand that I can destroy any metal with sound. So I used my vocal strength and then screamed loudly my name, and then all the swarm and Beelzebub were blasted away as if my sound wave was like fire to them. It burned and destroyed their bodies completely. The whole swarm was lit up on fire and Beelzebub screaming saying, "No, I am supposed to be indestructible now." In rage he attempts to hit me, but I go forward with my fist onto his chest and a fire-like sword came out and pierced his body, and it dismantled the android to pieces. And I was floating into the air. I see the tower fall apart and blowing all over the place and turned into rubble as it falls. I woke up. Chapter 8. The seventh and last dream. I was on Earth again and the whole world was suffering and water was everywhere. People were floating on little boats trying to survive, but many perished. I was with my family trying to save them and the people that followed me. We were fighting to survive, but then as I was trying my best to help them survive, some of them turned into monsters and started devouring each other, and soon the little people left perished. I was then alone fighting for my family at the oasis. We were seeing on television that the whole world had succumbed into war and the most destructive weapons was being used and the earth was laid to waste. Many great cities in rubble, people dying in masses everywhere, food, water, even the air was poisoned. We thought the fighting was done and we were rejoicing, but then suddenly from all the monsters I have been fighting, there emerged from the sea a monster so big I could not see the end of it. Something so terrifying, never seen before, and it froze everyone in total fear. It had many jaws like mouths, spitting poison gases and rotten blood, many heads, like endless men and women wrapped around together, making horrible hellish sounds of anguish and agony. Those monsters were destroying, rotting, and devouring the earth itself and all beings. And from this monster came even more terrible monsters looking like T-Rexes and raptors, in short, dinosaurs or serpent-like beings. Men and women were transforming into those monsters in the midst of the resting surviving people, and started to devour the remaining men and women who just survived Armageddon. It seemed this beast was hiding under the tower all along. As I had defeated the beast of the land and destroyed their plan, the tower, the beast of the sea Leviathan had to reveal itself. I saw how the rest of the world was completely destroyed in rubble by that mega beast, and all was submerged underwater, and the monsters were wreaking havoc, devouring the rest of the survivors, and were doing even more destruction than the insectoids that were just defeated. It seemed the whole world was destroyed, not much was left of survivors, and they were fighting helplessly as they were totally outmatched by these ruthless monsters. Chapter 9. I thought to myself, this huge beast and his monsters were hiding in plain sight, but we could not see them. They were everywhere, looking like us. How is this possible? This monster is so huge that everybody should have been able to see it. The power of that beast was on every man and women, twisting, controlling their minds with deceiving false promises and rendering them paralyzed with fear. I was capable to withstand this huge beast and fight it as it was trying to devour me desperately. At first, I did not know how to fight it, so I was running away from it. As it was the people itself that were wrapped around together forming that huge beast. I had trouble understanding how it existed. He seemed impossible to defeat. It was fast, cunning and deceiving, scales thicker than a building, and jaws everywhere like huge human mouths, trying to devour me and devouring and destroying everything in his wake. But then, after I saw my wife in the sea on a little island, the beast was heading toward her, trying to devour her too. After a fearsome fight with the monster wreaking havoc and drowning the world into deeper waters to get me, I saved my wife on a boat, and by misleading the beast with the head of Beelzebub on a hook, I managed to hook the beast, wear it down as I mounted it, and then with an incredible scream I pierced the monster's thick scales, and I killed it with one single blow with my voice, and all his monsters perished along with it, hearing the sound of my voice. After that I flew back to my wife, and then a green boat came from the sky, and there was a beautiful woman that emanated light, and we both stepped into it and we flew up. Very high up there in the heavens I saw many beings completely dressed in white, and they were all praising and applauding, and then as I was being flown over the crowd, they were so many multitudes and multitudes of people, and they were all screaming, "Glory! Glory!" It was an amazing sight, and then I was being flown to a huge throne so bright with light it was blinding to the eye, but I could still see it. And all these beings waved their hands, showing me that this was my seat, and when I sat upon the throne, and they all rejoiced and blasted trumpets and chant beautiful songs of victory. I was very proud and amazed. I was very happy, and I cried. Then I woke up. I was quite traumatized at first by these dreams, but from it I started to draw even more and tried to draw the man I saw in the dream as myself, and I called him UltimateMan, as that was the name they were calling me in the dream. I drew a lot then, but I was so much being influenced by other novels that I would often find myself drawing something else. So, I have many drawings here and there regarding my dream. But I drew enormously and became very good at it. Conclusion. One day when I 17 years old and living alone in The Hague in the Netherlands, my father came to me and said I was not his son, as my mother got pregnant when he was away for a mission for more than 3 months. When I asked my mother, she told me not to believe my father, but then gave me a photo of a woman and said, "Keep that photo well with you, she was your mother." Now I was completely confused, and she gave me a journal of a war that started in 1980 in Somalia when I was born, and also about Haile Selassie fall. I had no clue what my mother was trying to tell me, as she was my mother for me. But then looking at the photo, I came to realize that I do not look like my brother and sisters. My skin darkens completely under sun and I do not burn, and my skin turns dark bronze when I am in cold lands. I almost turn white like snow. When I look at Haile Selassie and his family, I have the same color skin that they have, and my mother on the photo given by my mother who raised me looks exactly like me. My brother and sister cannot stay long under the sun, otherwise they burn and they get red burn marks. I tried to confront lately my parents to tell me the truth, but my mother is hiding a deeper secret that she does not want my father to know, that I am not even her son. Something strange might have happened that the mother I know adopted me. My brothers and sisters would call me Madi, and that my father is called Fatty and my mother Madi, that I was found in the trash. They did not consider me as their brother at young age, like they were 9 and 8 years old and I was 5 years old. My adopted parents even left me alone in Senegal and went away with my older brother and sister when Senegal was at war with Mauritania. They did not seem to care about me as much as they cared about my brother and sister. I asked the Creator to show me the truth, and this is what He showed me: that my real mother fled from murderous assassins and she traveled the desert with a simple airplane and ended up hiding in Somalia, where she gave birth to me in a hospital, and there she gave me to my mother that raised me. This is what happened. My adopted mother lost her child at birth, and it was a black child, not mixed, so that would definitely be a proof to my father that her wife cheated on him, and my real mother was next to her, and she asked my new mother to take her child as her own child, as she would not be able to take care of me any longer. For my adopted mother, that was also a solution to her problem and could also subdue the pain of the loss of her own child. My real mother did stay for a while to take care of me, but then as Somalia was crumbling into total war, my adopted father and mother left the country quickly, leaving my real mother behind. I am curious to know if my real mother is still alive. Something tells me she is. One day I will return and find her. It is quite confusing, all of this, but the Serpent sure did his best to twist everything we know and corrupted it beyond recognition. May the Creator have mercy on all of us who have lost our roots and make us find our way back to our real brothers and sisters and our true land. End of the story of evil and the beginning of the story of good. Written by Tom Vigil at 2018. 3rd Vizion, all rights reserved at 2019.